Be the change you want to see inside of your company. What are the desired behaviors you wish other people would emulate? What are the desired behaviors that you wish other people on your team and inside of your company had? Those are the behaviors you need to start exhibiting first. Other people will see that and begin to emulate those as well. When I talk about leading by example, here are a few things for you to consider. First is, if you have information, share it. Inside of many organizations around the world, we find that oftentimes employees are scared to share information because they don't want other people to take credit for their work, or they're scared that their idea might be bad, whatever it might be, they don't want to share information. But if you want to be that great collaborator and if you want other people to collaborate with you, then you should be the first one who's willing to share that information. Post on your internal social network, raise your hand in the meeting, ask that question, be the change that you want to see. So again, model the behaviors that you wish other people were modeling. If you have some information that you think will benefit a coworker or a peer, the organization, whoever it might be, the team, volunteer that information, share that information, and that way in the future, when somebody else is in that position, they too will share the information with you. Lots of studies and research projects have been done which show that sharing information helps build trust because it brings in that level of transparency where kind of people can be let in, so to speak. So if you want to create that level of trust, that emotional connection, that psychological safety, then it's going to be very important for you to share information. And it's actually funny to even talk about this because when we're kids, we're always told to share. Right? Share this, share that, share the toy that you're playing with. We're constantly told to share. But for some reason, when we show up to work, this idea of sharing just disappears. And instead we go into this fear hoarding mode. My ideas, my project, my information, I'm gonna hold it. I'm not gonna share it with anybody else. Get away from me, right? What happened to this idea of sharing that we all learned about when we were kids? When leading by example, another thing that you might want to consider is this idea of embracing vulnerability. In other words, be the first one to speak up and say, I don't know how to do something. I have a question. I made a mistake. Be the first one to raise your hand and speak up and say those things, because if you do it, other people will start to do it. And again, you don't need to be an executive or a leader. If you are a leader, if you are an executive at your company, and if you're the first one to do this, then you will have tremendous impact because other people will realize that it's okay and they will emulate and model that behavior. But if you're not someone who is responsible for others, that's okay too. You can still start to be the first one to do these things, and others on your team will slowly start to emulate it as well. And then the idea is that eventually your manager will pay attention to it and also start modeling that behavior as well. Brené Brown wrote several books on this topic, and she actually has a great quote when it comes to embracing vulnerability. And she says that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. I love that quote, and I completely agree with her. So if you want to drive that kind of innovation and change in your company, don't be scared to be vulnerable. 2 more areas for leading by example. Are you willing to break down silos? Don't you hate how sometimes marketing doesn't talk to sales, R&D doesn't talk to marketing, everyone sits in their own little buckets? If you want that to change, why not be the first one to change it? Have lunch and learns where you invite people from different teams. Go yourself to those different teams and start those discussions. Take people out for coffee. Be the change that you want to see. Lead by example. If you want to break down the silos, then go break down those silos. And another one that I want you to consider when it comes to leading by example, this is a really tough one, and this is giving credit to other people and shielding them from any repercussions. Now, this is ideally something that your managers, that your leaders inside of your organizations will do, but it's also something that a lot of them don't do because they're not good at it, they weren't trained to do it. But as an employee, you can start to do this too. And what this means, for example, is if you're part of a team and the team does well and somehow you end up getting recognition for it, you can say, you know what, this was a team effort. I wouldn't have been able to do this without my team. In fact, my team deserves most of the credit. I just kind of helped, right? If you look at any time an athlete gets interviewed, that's what they always say. The most successful athletes, whether you look at somebody like LeBron James, a Novak Djokovic, Wayne Gretzky, whoever it might be, they always, whenever they're getting interviewed, they always say it's a team effort. We did a great job. We came out there as a team. The coach really helped me out. Thanks to my team. That's really what this is about. You want to make sure that when the team gets recognized, you actually distribute that recognition to other people. But the opposite is also true. Again, if you look at some of the greatest athletes that are out there, whenever a team doesn't do well, typically it's the star of the team that is willing to take the burden. You know what? I didn't play well. I missed a lot of shots. I should have done better. I should have communicated with my team better. They're willing to shoulder the blame. And that is a very, very tough thing for us to do inside of organizations. Now, this doesn't mean that you automatically just always become the scapegoat. You step up to take blame for everything. That's not what we're talking about here, right? We got to be a little bit smart with these things. Don't just volunteer to take the fall for every bad thing that happens, because chances are you won't be at the company very long if you do that. But it does mean that, for example, if your team doesn't do well on something, and if people are getting reprimanded for it, that you're willing to be the one to take a stance. You're willing to step up and say, you know what? It's my fault. I'm sorry. I'll help make sure that this doesn't happen again in the future. And think about what that does. Not only does the team look at you and say, wow, thank you. Thanks for taking the brunt of that. But all of a sudden, the team views you as the leader. All of a sudden, the team views you as somebody who's willing to step up and take charge. And so you get a lot of that kind of visibility as well. So keep these things in mind when you consider this idea of leading by example. These are just some of the common behaviors that you might want to display first so that other people around you can display them too. Athena and I hope you enjoyed that. If you want more content like that, check out futureofworkpodcast.com. And do me a favor, please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever your preferred channel is. Thank you very much.